Travel with Catholic Communications in August 2022 for the pilgrimage of a lifetime as we experience the famous Oberammergau Passion Play. Join pilgrimage leader Father Gary Daly for the spiritual journey to Germany and the village of Oberammergau, where since 1634 the Passion Play has been presented every 10 years in this quaint alpine village. Our 10-day pilgrimage from August 4th to the 14th will begin in Brussels, Belgium, and continue through Cologne, Heidelberg, Oberammergau, and Munich, Germany. With breakfasts and dinners included, pilgrims will enjoy daily Mass in many of Germany's brilliant cathedrals and churches, a cruise on the Rhine River, a visit to the Schönstatt Pilgrimage Shrine, dedicated to the Blessed Virgin, and to Munich's famous Glockenspiel. Book this incredible pilgrimage now for $5,439. For more information, go to iobserve.org.
Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel.
Celebrating the merger of 3 parishes in Holyoke, I'm Carolee McGrath at St. Jerome's. I'll have the story coming up.
The Catholic Daughters of America is celebrating a milestone anniversary. And from its aquatic gardens to its walking paths and sports fields, Springfield's Forest Park has been an urban oasis for more than 100 years. With plans for a special Labor Day weekend Mass underway to honor first responders during the pandemic. These stories and more coming your way next on Reel to Reel. Hello and welcome back to Reel to Reel. We're kicking off a brand new season with a visit to one of Western Massachusetts' iconic locations, Forest Park in Springfield. One of the largest urban municipal parks in the United States, Forest Park covers 735 acres. It was designed by 19th century world-renowned architect Frederick Law Olmsted. Coming up in 2 weeks, the park will host a special Mass dedicated to essential workers who were on the front lines during the pandemic. Bishop William Byrne will celebrate the live Chalice of Salvation liturgy on September 5th at 10 a.m. in the Natural Amphitheater here. I'll have more about the history of Forest Park coming up, but first, it was a celebration in Holyoke with 3 parishes merging into one. Our Lady of Guadalupe and Immaculate Conception are now officially part of St. Jerome Parish. As Carolee McGrath reports, the merger was led by parishioners.
Deacon Jose Correa led the Eucharistic procession from the former Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish on Maple Street in Holyoke to Veterans Memorial Park. There, the group was greeted by parishioners of Immaculate Conception and St. Jerome Parish.
Santa María, Madre de Dios, ruega por nosotros pecadores, ahora y en la hora de nuestra muerte. Amén.
After praying the Hail Mary in French, Spanish, and English, the church community walked as one family, celebrating the merger of the 3 parishes into St. Jerome Church on Hampden Street. Bishop William Byrne celebrated the Mass of Thanksgiving, which also commemorated the solemnity of the Assumption of Mary.
Mary is our dignity and our destiny. She represents who you and I can be as disciples. She shows us that being united in love, we are united with God both now and for eternity. She is the mother of this community of faith and rejoices at the unity that you experience, that we experience this day.
Father Mark Stelzer, the administrator of St. Jerome, helped guide the 3 parishes through the process. Last fall, the parishes came together to form the Catholic Collaborative of Holyoke in order to share resources and worship space.
So it was really a unique way of doing a merger, led by the people themselves, their councils coming together, working together, and trying to decide what would be the best course of action for Holyoke. And the result of it was the decision made about 6 months ago that we would form the Catholic Collaborative with the new name of St. Jerome's Parish, reconfigured.
The combined choirs of all 3 parishes provided music for the Mass in English and Spanish. During the Mass, Father Francis Riley was introduced as the new pastor.
I feel great about coming back to Holyoke, and I would like to just continue the work that has been started here and to continue in the spirit that the bishop spoke about of one Catholic community here in Holyoke.
In October of 2020, Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish began worshiping at St. Jerome's. Its former worship space, Sacred Heart Church, was closed in March of 2017 when plaster began falling from the ceiling. At that time, masses were moved into the chapel and parish center. The former Sacred Heart Church building had been the worship space of Our Lady of Guadalupe since 1999, after Our Lady of Perpetual Help burned down. St. Jerome's is the oldest Catholic church in Holyoke, dating back to 1854. And while parishioners came together to celebrate their unity in Christ, they also celebrated their unique history. Parishioners presented special items from all three churches, which will be kept at St. Jerome's, including the original baptismal register from the former Sacred Heart Church, dating back to 1876.
It was an awesome, awaited day. We were full of faith, full of hope. Our spirit has been renewed in faith and hope for our city, for our church. I am so thankful to Father Mark, to Father Mendez, to our new bishop, to Father Riley for supporting this initiative that was led by us.
The new merger will allow for masses to be celebrated at St. Jerome's and Immaculate Conception on North Summer Street. Immaculate Conception will be retained as a chapel. Deacon Jose echoed the words of the bishop, saying the new church community is united in Christ.
Carrying the Blessed Sacrament, coming into St. Jerome today in the procession that we were doing, it was an amazing feeling, an amazing experience for the part that it shows that we are one church. We're only one. And all three of us coming together at three parishes, meeting in the park and then walking straight into the church by ourselves with Jesus in front. It was an amazing experience.
Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night.
And together, parishioners celebrated and publicly witnessed to the love of Christ. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
I'm Dan Dumas with your Reel to Reel news briefs. The Catholic Schools Office of the Diocese of Springfield has issued reopening protocols allowing parents to decide whether or not their children will wear masks in school. Teachers at St. Stanislaus School in Chicopee are setting up their classrooms and getting ready to welcome kids back to school. Last year, Catholic schools in the Diocese of Springfield led the way locally, offering in-person instruction while most schools remained remote or hybrid through April. This year, following health data, the Catholic Schools Office announced parents will be able to decide whether or not their children will wear a mask in the class.
Our vaccination rate in the Commonwealth is very high. All of our teachers, for the most part, are vaccinated in the schools. And we haven't seen spread in our schools. And if we see spread in our schools, we'll make different recommendations.
Catholic School Superintendent Daniel Belargin says each school will continue to work with its local Department of Health. In addition to medical-grade air purifiers, schools will continue to space students a minimum of 3 feet apart. Masks will be strongly recommended for unvaccinated staff and visitors.
We put in protocols in our schools that protected the environments. So we have medical-grade air purifiers, we have proper ventilation, we have hand sanitizer, we have hand washing stations, and we really took care of the physical environments for the students. And in consultation with our experts, they recommended to us that based on all those mitigation strategies, that it was unnecessary to mandate masks in our classrooms.
Governor Charlie Baker said he's not considering a mask mandate at this time, leaving such a policy up to local communities and school districts. While the Massachusetts Department of Secondary and Elementary Education does recommend masks for students in the younger grades, and in grades 6 through 12 for students who are unvaccinated, the decision is left to local districts. Belargin says it's critically important to look at all factors, including the social and emotional development of children.
There were some studies that have been conducted, talked about students, children who are wearing masks and are constantly around people with masks. They can't process the difference between anger and joy because the only thing they see are like the eyes, and they can't see the expression of the face. Well, that has a limiting factor on their emotional development. They should see in their classrooms, right, one another's joy. They should see these things that are there. And if we can do it safely, then we should do it safely.
Belargin adds, unlike many other districts, Catholic schools did not experience learning loss due to the decision to go in person last fall. For more information on reopening guidelines, go to diospringfield.org. Parents are asked to continue to monitor their children for symptoms and keep them home if they are sick. And to stay on top of this issue, visit iobserve.org. When each individual makes a small act of charity, like getting the COVID-19 vaccine, every gesture added together can transform the world. Pope Francis said in a global public service announcement released August 18th in Rome. The video message was part of a global effort by the US-based nonpartisan, nonprofit Ad Council and the COVID Collaborative It's Up to You campaign to increase people's confidence in COVID-19 vaccines by reminding them that the vaccines are safe, effective, and save people's lives. The 3-minute video in Spanish and available with subtitles features Pope Francis and 6 cardinals and archbishops from North and South America. You can view the entire message on the Vatican YouTube channel through a link on iobserve.org. And finally, Bishop Byrne is calling for all parishes in the Diocese of Springfield to take up a special collection for the people of Haiti. On August 14th, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck the country, bringing with it massive destruction and loss. In a letter to be read at masses across the diocese this weekend, Bishop Byrne said, "It is at just such a moment that we are called by our Lord and Savior to reach out in true Christian charity to help those who have so little. The funds collected will be distributed to the hardest hit areas." Elms College President Dr. Harry Dumais is a native of Haiti. In a statement he gave to iobserve.org, he expressed his appreciation for the outpouring of support for the Haitian people that he's felt from the diocese and confirms that his family and friends are all safe. The Elms College also has a partnership with nursing school programs in the country who are gearing up to assist in relief efforts. You can read his full statement online at iobserve.org, where you can always stay informed on all the latest news in the Catholic Church locally and beyond. There you can read articles from our Catholic communication staff, as well as view on-demand episodes of Real to Real. That's iobserve.org. I'm Dan Dumas, and those were your Real to Real news briefs.
And still to come on Real to Real from Forest Park in Springfield, merging spirituality and service, one of the oldest women's volunteer organizations, marks a milestone. And thanks to the generosity and foresight of Springfielders like Everett Barney, folks have been able to enjoy this urban oasis for more than a century. These stories are still ahead on Real to Real.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. My passion is Brother Terrence Scanlon, your Chalice host, inviting you to take time out of your busy day and join us Sunday morning. We welcome Father Warren Savage as our presider and celebrate the 21st Sunday in Ordinary Time with the Knights and Ladies of St. Peter Claver. The Chalice of Salvation, Sunday mornings at 10 on 22 News WWLP.
You are watching Real to Real, your window on the world around you. Here again is your Real to Real host, Sharon Rulier.
They're one of the oldest and largest volunteer organizations of Catholic women in the United States. Merging spirituality and service, the Catholic Daughters of the Americas traces its beginnings to before the First World War. In a story produced earlier this year, Steve Kiltonick tells us about this charitable group celebrating an historic milestone.
On April 17th, a massive Thanksgiving was held at St. Elizabeth of Hungary Church in North Adams for a special group of women from the parish. Sitting in the front rows were members of Court Margaret No. 629, Catholic Daughters of the Americas. With Mass co-celebrants Springfield Bishop William Byrne and Pastor Darius Udarski, this group celebrated the 100th anniversary of its founding. The Catholic Daughters of the Americas was established in 1903 by the Knights of Columbus as a charitable, benevolent, and patriotic sorority for Catholic women. It is one of the oldest and largest organizations of Catholic women in America, with 63,000 members in 1,150 courts or chapters.
Unity and charity is our motto, and as I say, it was so that people from all the different parishes could all be in one group and be charitable.
Justina Carlson has been a member of this court for over 30 years. Her mother belonged before her.
We're one of the oldest in Massachusetts because the group started in Utica, New York, and then moved both east and west. And so we were sponsored by Hoosick Falls, New York, and Bennington, Vermont. So we're older than many of them in the Boston area that didn't start until later.
Catholic Daughters were active overseas during World War I, serving as nurses, clerks, sewing and knitting instructors for the Red Cross, as well as party organizers and entertainers. In 1921, the organization became independent from the Knights and changed its name from the National Order of Daughters of Isabella to the Catholic Daughters of America, or CDA. By 1928, CDA membership reached 170,000 in courts in the U.S., Panama, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Canada. In 1954, the name was changed to the Catholic Daughters of the Americas to reflect its expansion and diversity south of America's borders. The Daughters participate in a whole range of activities locally, many of which involve charity. Margaret 629 once held a tea and gave out scholarships to girls who graduated from the former St. Joseph's High School in town. Today they give out scholarships to children and grandchildren of members. Some of its other programs feature donations to Habitat for Humanity, the United Way, Girl Scouts, and St. Vincent de Paul. The CDA is also involved in the military with a program called Troop-Ons.
You can cut out coupons up to 6 months old. They can be expired. They go to servicemen. Their families can use them on a base. They can use them at the PX. The stamps go to the stamp group in this area that teaches scouts how to take stamps off safely, to put them into albums. The flip tops go to the Shriners Hospital. They sell the metal.
The group is also active in the Right to Life movement and the Massachusetts Citizens for Life chapter.
For a number of years, we have done what we call rosaries for the unborn. All during the year, from November to November, people say rosaries. They turn in the figures at the end.
They also sponsor one local person annually to attend the National March for Life in Washington, D.C. When Margaret Court 629 was formed in 1921 with 64 charter members, it encompassed 5 North Adams parishes and 2 parishes in Williamstown. But over the years, low enrollment caused the closing of courts in Springfield, Lenox, Pittsfield, and Adams. Today, 629 membership is down to 13, with ages ranging from the 50s to the 90s. But in some states like Texas and Florida, national membership is booming. Mary Ann Grzecki is the CDA district deputy. She said it's a challenge to recruit new members here.
It's a large national organization, but unfortunately, so many of us are getting older now, and it's harder to get people to come in because the young people are they're with soccer, with this and that, with their children, and we don't have the followings that we used to have.
For Charlotte Cardamino, it's the camaraderie that has kept her a member for over 38 years.
I just enjoy the people that are in the club, and I look forward to, it's something to look forward to every month.
We learn from one another, and we expand our horizons. You know, we share each other's lives, and I think it's great.
While the future remains uncertain, Margaret Court 629 always has the welcome mat out for new members. To join, all one has to be is Catholic, female, and over 18 years old. For Reel to Reel, I'm Steve Kiltonic.
Thanks, Steve, and congratulations to a remarkable group. As I mentioned off the top of the show today, in just 2 weeks, Bishop William Byrne will celebrate a Mass in honor of all those who worked so hard on the front lines during the COVID pandemic. The Mass will be live on Sunday, September 5th at 10 a.m. right here in the amphitheater in Forest Park, and all, especially essential workers, are encouraged to attend in person. It's sure to be a beautiful event in this park that has been a part of the fabric of the city of Springfield for more than 100 years. It was just after the Civil War when in 1884, Springfielder Oric H. Greenleaf offered 65 acres of land, establishing a park in the city, and Forest Park was born. With parasols, top hats, and the latest fashion, folks flocked to this park to watch a game of America's favorite pastime, cool off in the country's first wading pool, or simply stroll through the hills and dales. Director of Springfield Parks Patrick Sullivan credits the vision of several of Springfield's early pioneers.
When you think of Springfield parks, you always think of Forest Park as the crown jewel of Springfield's park system. And we're very lucky that our forefathers had the foresight to set aside this land for its citizens.
In 1890, 178 more acres were donated by wealthy philanthropist Everett Hosmer Barney, who had built a magnificent estate on a portion of the property, a mansion he called Pecusik Villa, along with a carriage house.
Once upon a time, this part of Forest Park, much of it, was home, a very, very nice suburban home to multimillionaire manufacturer Everett Barney. And this was home. So what we know as much of Forest Park was his backyard.
The Framingham native moved to Springfield during the Civil War, making his fortune in locomotion and ammunition. After the war, Barney turned his attention to the development and manufacturing of ice skates. He secured a patent for a new clamp that revolutionized the industry, becoming known as the man who put America on skates. Although successful in business, Barney's personal life was marked with much sadness. His first wife, Ellen, died shortly after the birth of their only son, George, in 1863. Barney would be a single parent until marrying his second wife, Eliza, when George was about 12.
George became very sickly, and he contracted consumption, which we today know as tuberculosis. There was no cure.
George died in 1889 at the age of 26. Barney built a lavish mausoleum near the carriage house where his second wife, George, and later Barney, who died in 1916, would all be buried. After George's death, Barney collaborated with world-renowned landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted, who provided the vision for the landscape of Forest Park. Olmsted also designed New York's Central Park and Boston's Emerald Necklace. Barney's generosity came from honoring one of his son's last requests.
He urged his father to give all that he had to the city of Springfield.
Olmsted and Barney saw potential beyond the area that was originally swamps and rocks and ravines.
He actually carved out these aquatic gardens. There's roughly 13 ponds, and they host the Egyptian lotus that he brought into these ponds.
Forest Park grew over the turn of the 20th century through more donations of land to its current 735 acres. However, with the construction of Route 91 came the destruction of Pecusik Villa, which had been turned into a museum following Barney's death.
Pecusik Villa was in the way. In 1959, it was torn down. Things were tossed. A lot of things were just thrown away.
But the carriage house was spared and has been restored and is used to host weddings, parties, and corporate events. Today, Forest Park is divided into two sections: the upper park with active recreation, including sports fields, an ice skating rink, pool, splash pad, rose garden, and zoo, and the lower park dedicated to passive recreation. Recently, the park was designated as a Level 2 Arboretum, and Forest Park is working with the U.S. Forestry Service and the University of Massachusetts, tagging trees and developing a map.
In Barney's lifetime, he brought in many exotic plants into Forest Park, but it was one of his goals to have a representative of every tree and shrub from North America in this park.
Forest Park has been a much-needed oasis in the city for decades, according to Springfield Mayor Dominic Sarno.
For a city, it's always important in urban America that you have to have an oasis. When I was growing up, my oasis was in the south end, Emerson White Park, in Forest Park here, right here in Forest Park, because you know, my father worked all the time. He had the barber shop, and my mother didn't drive, and then she had the seamstress shop. So this is how we recreated for my family, and maybe you got to the beach once a week or once a month to take a ride.
Mayor Sarno and Sullivan both agree that the park has been especially appreciated since the onset of COVID-19.
During the pandemic, our numbers skyrocketed here and everyone was walking through the park.
Above the aquatic ponds sits a 1,000-seat natural grass amphitheater built in the 1920s. It was one of Barney's wishes to have an outdoor concert area in the park. And this is where Bishop Byrne will celebrate the September 5th special Mass in honor of pandemic first responders.
To our first responders that never stopped. They never stopped, and COVID-19 did not stop them. And being a public servant, you know, I always say we don't mind constructive criticism, but I want to remind people that, you know, when everybody else is running out of that building, it's those first responders who are running in to save structures and to save lives.
Mayor Sarno said he and the bishop have been discussing the opportunity to celebrate a liturgy in the park since the bishop first arrived in the diocese last year.
And I'm so happy, I'm elated that Bishop Byrne, who spiritual wisdom and advice, and he's got a great sense of humor too. When he first came to the Diocese of Springfield with his sidekick Zelly, he likes to walk Zelly in Forest Park here. And we've been together a few times, more than a few times, and he said, I would love to do an outdoor Mass here at Forest Park.
An altar will be set up at the base of the amphitheater.
The seating is built into that hillside. We encourage everyone to bring their own lawn chair or beach chair to that morning for the Mass.
Park officials will be waiving the park admission fee for people attending the Mass, as well as directing folks to available parking. Shuttles will be provided for those needing special assistance.
We're ready for the public to enjoy the park, and we're just thrilled that the bishop saw the beauty and wanted to do this for our city.
Beautiful setting for a Mass that will be a wonderful tribute to all who worked and sacrificed so much during the pandemic. I know the bishop looks forward to celebrating with these folks in person on September 5th at 10 a.m. And for this week, that's Reel to Reel. Before we go, a reminder that the annual Faith on Fire rally will be held Friday, September 10th at Sacred Heart Church in Feeding Hills. Bishop Byrne and his sister, Sister Deirdre Byrne, will be the keynote speakers. The event will include praise and worship music and Eucharistic adoration. Be sure to follow the latest news of the Catholic Church, both locally and around the world, on our news and information site, iobserve.org. That's iobserve.org. And due to NBC programming, we will be off next weekend on WWLP TV 22. I will see you right back here in 2 weeks for Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. See you then.
Reel to Reel is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.